In my last video, I said, I'm going to do another video and talk about the different things that I am doing, what I'm targeting on my website, what I'm trying to fix, what I'm trying to adjust, what I'm trying to tweak, what I'm trying to give a little bit of a tune in Tokyo to try to get Google to recognize me again, to say, hey, I like this guy. And so I've been a little bit under the weather. I'm still under the weather a little bit. You might be able to hear my voice, and my energy level is in the pooper. But I'm feeling good enough, and I'm overdue for this video, so I want to put this out and show you guys the 9 things that I have targeted on my site to try to turn my traffic around. And I'm going to show you actually what my traffic has been doing since I started doing these 9 things. Is this going to work in the long run? Who effing knows about anything at this point? As long as they keep rolling out updates back to back, A to M, then like who knows what's going to work. But it's working something so far. You're going to see that in my traffic here. So let me just jump right into it. For context, I think context is important. I want to show you my traffic again, what it's been doing lately after getting totally bamboozled by the, HCU first and then the couple after that. You can see here, it's gotten kind of interesting since I started implementing some of these tactics. I'm not giving anybody advice on any of this stuff. I'm just showing you what I'm doing. Maybe it'll help you out, or you'll see something go, maybe that'll work for me. Because that's where I'm at for me. I'm like, maybe it'll work for me. So let's jump into the first thing that I wanted to show you, which specifically was, number 1, these are 9 things, by the way. I'll probably list it as like 9 things I'm doing or some sort of clickbaity title. So the first thing that I did is I did a screaming frog audit. Every time I say that, I want to say screaming trees. R.I.P. Mark Lanigan. So a screaming frog audit. And I just took this and I said, I'm just going to do this first, and I'm just going to look through it and see if anything looked weird. And I noticed a couple of things whenever I did this. One was that I looked at some very, very basic things like my titles, right? I looked at my titles and I found some that I thought just were a little bit too short, right? Things that just didn't look right. So that's the first thing I did, is I did a screaming frog audit, and I eyeballed it. And I just went through several things and tried to find anything that didn't make sense. Things that were primarily too short or missing. So that would have been meta descriptions missing, titles that were too short, etc. So that was the first thing that I did. And I'll put a link to anything that I'm using, any sort of tool that I'm using. I'll put a link in the description down below in case you want to go check out. Screaming Frog is a pretty popular one for doing audits. So that was the first thing I did. The second thing I did was I then took that audit and I ran it over to ChatGPT. And I was just like, here you go, Chat. I uploaded the file and I said, act as an SEO genius or something. I said, is there anything on this that looks weird, that from an SEO standpoint that you would consider making an update to, or that needs some sort of action? And the first thing that it popped out to me is it said that it noticed that on my several meta descriptions that they still had the year 2022 in them. And so whenever I looked at it, and I actually went here and I did a search and I typed in 2022, and then I did a filter by, move my face out of the way, and I did it by meta description, which is meta description 1, and then I hit OK. There was like 10 of them here that I hadn't updated that still said we're almost in 2024. So I went in and I updated every single meta description that I could. One of the things I've really learned through this process, and frankly that's going to end up being a blessing by losing all that traffic, is that when I started doing this blogging a couple years ago, I didn't do it with any SEO background. I just knew how to do it. I built a website and then I started writing, and I wrote like crazy. And a lot of what I learned about what should be done to articles in your site and different things, I didn't sometimes follow up on a lot of those things because I was so busy moving forward. So things like returning to like meta descriptions and making sure that they're updated properly was something that I just never thought about. And to be honest, even though I know better now and I've known better for a while, I've just moved so far kind of mentally beyond that. So this whole update situation has sort of forced me to relook at some of those things and go like, of course, why wouldn't I have thought that? But it just wasn't on my register anymore. So that's the second thing I did, is I went through and I did an update on all of my meta descriptions that said 2022, and I also made sure to reword them just a little bit to make sure that the keyword that I was kind of targeting was part of that somewhere. So that was the second thing that I did. One of the other things that's very embarrassing to admit, but again, whenever I wrote a lot of these articles a year and a half ago, I sometimes would write them and maybe not realize that I hadn't completed them or that I'd been sloppy on them. So one of the things I noticed going through that same Screaming Frog audit is I noticed that there was a couple of places that said lorem ipsum. Lorem ipsum is just like a placeholder. If you started doing something on an article and didn't finish it, a lot of times they'll say lorem ipsum or whatever that word is. And so whenever I saw that on the Screaming Tree audit, I was like, oh no, I've got live articles. I think there's only 2 of them, but live articles that aren't completed that are out there in live. And sure enough, I went in, I edited them out, and they were on there. They're both on FAQs. So that was the other thing I did is I targeted any sort of issue that could be easily recognized as an unfinished yet published piece of content. Went in and I fixed a couple. Again, I was just some guy that was trying his hardest just to keep writing articles and pump stuff out and learning as I went. There was times that I missed some things that should have been absolutely obvious to somebody that was more intertwined with the whole space, and I wasn't. I was just learning how to blog as I went along. So that was the next thing, number 3, that I targeted. There's been so much focus on, are your articles answering the question that people are asking, that I wanted to sort of relook at my FAQs. A lot of my FAQs that I wrote them trying to find certain keywords and terms that I had not yet used that were being recommended to me by my SEO system, that I was trying to basically cram into these FAQs, not to answer a question that people were looking for, but more to fulfill SEO guidelines to try to rank articles. Of course, HCU did not appreciate a lot of that. So now that we're kind of looking at this different and going like, is your article answering the questions? I've been going back through my FAQs and I have been simplifying the questions and the answers. But the answers specifically I've been simplifying, and I have been asking ChatGPT to optimize the answers to my FAQ questions in a way that they would be considered for potential Google feature snippet placement. Because to me, that's just another opportunity to be able to be ranked, to be able to get traffic. And I wanted to not just give answers, but I wanted to give answers that were structured and optimized in a way that Google might go like, that's good for featured snippets. And so I started doing that about 2.5, 3 weeks ago. And what I wanted to show you is I actually have been tracking my numbers, and it's from Ahrefs. So I'm just going into Ahrefs. I'll show you how I get to it just in case you want to know. So I'm just going here, clicking on my total keywords, going up to the SERP features, hitting featured snippet, apply, show results. And then this number is what I track. And if you look at, is this working? Well, from 1027, when I had 464, you can see here in just a matter of a couple of weeks, not quite tripled my featured snippets, but doing pretty good there. So that's the next thing on my list is I wanted to rethink the way I was doing FAQs, not just to answer the question that was actually being asked by whoever got to my website, but I wanted the answer to be optimized in a way that Google would perhaps consider it for feature snippet placement. Number 5, am I on 5? I think I'm on 5. The 5th thing I did is I got serious about optimizing my site. So I was referencing primarily 3 different sites to test my site overall and see how it was doing. First was Page Speed Insights. And again, I'll link all this below. I was really intent here about making sure that my mobile got better. My desktop has always been a good score, but whenever I started to go through this process, my number for performance on mobile was usually somewhere in the 50s consistently. So I worked really hard to basically figure out a way to fix these problems. How did I do that? ChatGPT. I fought with ChatGPT for weeks going through this because I'm just like, hey, chat, here's this error message here. What do I do? And then I would let it try to tell me, and then I go, hey, I don't understand what you're saying. It wasn't easy to try to figure out. But again, I've said this from the beginning. I'm just some average dum-dum from the Midwest. I just work really hard. And I worked through this until I figured out how to get this score up. Sometimes this even gets all green across the board, which I'm really happy with. It's not perfect, but it's much better than it was. So, one of the other things I actually did was hired somebody off of Fiverr to try to fix this, and they did some stuff, but it didn't really change the score any, and they ended up actually deactivating my WP Rocket and several other things, so I did a complete site rollback because I didn't like any of their changes. You can do this on your own if you have the patience and the time to do it. I had the time. I'm not sure I had the patience. I called chat several names during that. I don't know why. It just makes me feel better. So the other one I was using was GT Metrics. I wanted to make sure that I stayed consistent here, that any changes that benefited me on page speed I didn't want one to impact one positively and it impact the other one negatively. I really wanted things to kind of be across the board good. And then the other one was SE Optimer. And so something was really interesting about this particular one is it goes through and it tells you things that it thinks are good and things it needs fixed. It pointed out something I had never noticed, which was right here, H1 header tag usage. I had recently, as I was going through page speed to try to get my mobile site better, I made some adjustments to the design of my site, and I accidentally put 2 H1 headers on there. I didn't even realize it. This is the only test that pointed out that I had two H1 headers. I looked at it and I was like, oh no, this was an X. And it said, you have two headers that are H1 on your homepage. I was like, ugh. And it was live like that. So I used these three, but the main thing was I really wanted to get my mobile score into a better position, and I just fought with it for weeks until I got a score that I was happy with. One of the things I said earlier was that there's a lot of concentration on, does your article answer the question that brought that person to your site to start with? And somebody said along the way, like, try to answer it as soon as you can in your article. Maybe that will be seen by Google as like, here it is, and you're answering it very quickly. And so I've approached that in two different ways. This is my next thing, is I'm trying to answer the question early. One is I've actually, in some instances, I've moved the FAQ. And by the way, this image was created with DALL-E in ChatGPT. If you're not using DALL-E to help supplement your blog images, it is an absolute game changer. On this, I said, draw a picture of a gummy in a gym doing bicep curls. Like, that's pretty dope. So anyways, so the FAQ, here's one thing that I'm doing that's a little bit different, is I'm putting the FAQ, I usually put this at the end, but I'm putting a condensed version of the FAQ earlier with a very direct question and answer of what we're here for. This is what is a creatine gummy? FAQ is, what are creatine gummies? I answered it right here off the bat. The alternative version of that is I'm actually creating a highlight box somewhere towards the front of an article saying, what is the lung alarm in this particular case? I did not have this at all. So I'm trying to approach that of like, one, making sure that I answer the question in a very direct way for the sake of Google thinking that's good, but also because of like potential feature snippet placement or, extra highlights or SERP features that I might get out of that by answering it very directly, but two, putting it in the front of the article, maybe it just comes across better. So that's the other thing. Another thing that I'm doing on my site is answer the question directly and answering it soon. A new tool that I picked up along this whole recovering traffic journey is Link Whisper. Link Whisper is an internal linking tool, and I'll link to this down below as well in the description, that reads your article for you and then looks for places to put links to give you recommendations for link usage. So here I am. I'll show you how this works. I'm in my website. I'm in an edit of one of my articles. And so if you scroll down here to the bottom, this whole section down here is Link Whisper suggested links. And so on the left-hand side, it'll tell you, here's something in here in your article that it thinks you can internally link to, and then it'll tell you where it can link to. Like in this case, this is a category, so I'm not going to link here. Workouts to workouts, no. This one, they highlighted every day, 45-minute workouts every day to running every day. I don't like that. That's a workout, no. Track my goals, abs, no. Need to track your workouts, hit no. Cheat meals always mean pizza. That feels like a good place to do an internal link to me. Diet consistently, the secret you need to know to diet. I like that. So basically you're just going to check mark the ones over here on the left side that you want, and then you're going to just hit the insert link. You can still go through your article obviously and do your own, but this is just a nice quick way to find recommendations. They actually got bigger bulk tools that you can use within Link Whisper. I just like doing one article at a time like this just to make sure what it's linking, but it's an easy and fast way to just get recommendations on what to link in your article and what to link it to. I had mentioned this in one of my other videos, but I try to really stay on top of my image optimization. I want my page speeds to be as fast as possible, and I don't want images to be a problem. In fact, it's interesting, as I just now come here to show you this, I can see that my number has dropped to 90. It was just 100 a couple days ago, but I've added some more pictures in. So I'm trying to stay on top of this to make sure that I've always got a 100% score, that all of my images are optimized totally. When I first started to go through this process, that number was like almost nothing. I hadn't done the bulk Imagify is what it says at the bottom. Imagify them all. I had to go through and do a bulk. Once I did that, it was you can see here, I've saved 74% of the size thanks to this tool. So I'll do it and it'll say 100%, and I'm going back maybe a week later and I'll check it again. And if that number has changed, I'll re-Imagify or re-optimize all of them again. I'm staying on top of the images to make sure that they never have a negative impact on my site speed. The last thing on my list was I reduced my ad frequency dramatically. So I am currently monetized with Mediavine, and there's been so much chatter after the HCU of the way that Mediavine clients got impacted by the HCU. I'm not convinced that it's because it's Mediavine. I'm thinking that might be more related to what Mediavine's clients typically are, which is somebody like me, niche bloggers. But I wanted to get as much of the ads out of the way as I could so that they would not impact me negatively as I try to recover my traffic. You can't actually disable your ads completely. That was actually one of my first thoughts, was like, hey, can I just turn these off for now? Mediavine said I can't. It's against the terms of service, which I'm fine with. So I just reduced them in the dashboard anywhere that I could find to either disable them in some spots, and the rest of them I just minimized their visibility. So I've still got them that they're showing up, so I'm still making a little bit of money, but frankly, because my traffic had dropped so badly anyways, I'm not making enough for it to even really matter. So that was the other thing that I did, was I just was like, you know what, let's get rid of as many of the ads as I can. I'll worry about putting them in later once my traffic comes back. That's the end of my list. Hopefully this was helpful for you. I really wanted to make sure to put stuff on here that was of substance, that had girth, if you will. I didn't want to make it a long list. Sometimes length doesn't really do much. Sometimes it's all about the girth of the situation that makes the most difference. So going to leave that alone and move on. If this was helpful to you, please hit like. Maybe consider hitting the subscribe. Again, I'm not an SEO smarty pants. I'm not a whiz kid. I'm just some bozo from the Midwest that works really hard and built himself a pretty decent website over the last couple of years, only to see it crash in front of his eyes over the last 3 months, which has also been super cool. Thank you, Google. But more videos on the way. That traffic will come back. We ain't giving up that easy. We'll see you on the next video. Peace out.